The Square Ball Podcast.
Let's talk about Brenden Aaronson then, shall we? He's back at Leeds United. Mixed opinions on this, fair to say. How do you feel about it, Michael Normanton and Daniel Chapman, a.k.a. Moscow White?
I suppose I'd probably rather he wasn't coming back, truth be told. But as he is coming back, yay! That'll be nice to see him, won't it? No, my instinct is I didn't think he would come back, and I sort of didn't want him to come back. But it turns out he is, or maybe he is.
I've thought for a while he would do, probably just because of the economics involved.
Do you think he's going to do a driving safety course?
Oh, God, I forgot about that, yeah. Come back to face the music. Does he have to go directly to prison? Is that right? Will he be arrested upon re-entering the country?
It's maybe why he can't leave again. It might be an ankle tag issue, which if we see him running just out of play next season, we'll know which ankle the tag is on.
Or maybe in circles, like if he starts,
weighing him down. Not only the weight of the tag, but the weight of the guilt and the responsibility of the speeding offences that he perpetrated. So it's the safety of the county's roads that is probably the first concern.
Is that uppermost in your mind right now?
Always.
Yeah.
Well,
because it was Christensen and did Marsh get done as well?
Yeah, and did Somerville get done as well? It was a bad year for him, sure.
Yeah, so...
well, if Marsh is gone, I guess Somerville probably leaving. So maybe on balance we're allowed to bring some offenders back.
Does he do all the speeds that they reached, do they all kind of get added up to Aaronson, and that's like the total he can go? So everybody was done for like 43 or 50. That means he can do 93 miles an hour at will.
Probably wouldn't recommend that.
Aaronson,
No.
It wasn't even one big offence with Aaronson. He got from totting up. He managed to get a driving ban. He was only here a year.
Yeah, he's bad at lots of things.
That really is some going.
Is he bad at football, though? Is the view of him coloured by his speedy departure after relegation, some of the things that he said? Obviously, he became a little bit of a lightning rod for the old falling over and pleading and whining. Is that colouring his view, our view of him as a footballer? Because I don't think he's...
Having seen him play as a footballer?
Yeah, colouring his view makes it sound like it's an unfair assessment.
I suppose what I mean is it's like the opposite of absence makes the heart grow fonder. People are misremembering how good or bad he was based on basically the nature of his departure rather than what he did do on a field. Because I don't think he was completely terrible. There's enough evidence to say he's a competent footballer and probably will be fine for the Championship. No?
But
anyone?
The early bit of the season under Marsh, talking the first 5 games or something, he looked good. He did genuinely look good, and he made sense within the system, and you could see why we'd bought him and how he would fit into Marsh's Brave New World. From when did it? Leicester? Well, that's when that season really went off a cliff, wasn't it? I feel like from very early on, it was not very good. But it is a different league.
He wasn't the only one, is the thing. I'm not trying to defend Brenden Aaronson in particular, just play devil's advocate here and just wondering if maybe we've remembered him as worse than he was because he's annoyed us by leaving and being quite happy to leave, and spoke openly about how great an opportunity it was to be in Berlin and so on and so forth.
I think everybody was annoyed by him before he left.
Yeah.
So, and that was entirely mostly just due to his style of play.
Yeah.
And the time he was spending on the floor. And then what didn't help then was the kind of the things that then happened confirmed probably how we all felt watching him, that he just went within days, and then talked about there was the interview he did where he said he felt it was it was a bit unfair, all this stuff about him diving. He was trying to win free kicks for the team. Like,
that is diving, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. So he didn't see it. So none of the things that subsequently happened helped anybody go like, oh, well, maybe we were a bit unfair about the way we assessed him on the pitch. It actually was more like, oh, no, we're right.
Yeah. I wonder, was he under instructions to go down? You don't quite ever know, do you? Because by extension, I would be interested to see how he performs in a different tactical system with a different and perhaps better coach.
Well, yeah, there is always that. And he did end the season kind of all right in Germany. I can't say I was following it closely, but he was actually playing some games towards the end.
He has a whole tweet's worth of highlights now.
Yes.
So that's an improvement.
Like up to about, was it end of January, kind of started getting a bit of game time. It just felt like he went there and they never ever used him for a while. And that, I think that pretty much confirmed suspicions that we had that maybe he wasn't that good.
And do you remember what the sporting director said about why he wasn't getting in the team?
It was his physicality, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Get off the floor.
He was a little weakling. He was always on the floor.
I feel like there needs to be a German word. Ein Weakling or something like that. Ein Weaklingkinder, something like that.
Do you remember when Pierre-Michel Lasogga turned up and I was reading his old stuff? His nickname in Germany had been the Storm Tank. The absolute exact opposite. The two things, I guess, to be a bit fairer to Brenden, I tried to find them today and I don't know if I imagined it, but there were, when things were breaking down, he doesn't help himself in lots of ways, the way things have gone. There were stories last year that whatever was going on behind the scenes at Leeds, nobody really had a problem with him. The way some players were like kind of throwing their weight around and lots of egos in play. And it was like, he just trains, he tries, he's fine, he's nice, nobody dislikes him, he's fine. The problem with the manner of his departure and then the hope for this season is he left immediately, and it was at least, was it 2 months later? No, it's like 6 weeks before Daniel Farke was in. So Daniel Farke, it's not like the Verba situation when Daniel Farke was like, you're brilliant, you can be captain, you'll romp the championship. And he went, yes. And then he went, actually, no. I don't know if they ever spoke because there was never any question of him playing for Leeds last season. Whereas if the chats that Graham Smith has reported have been a bit different this time, where Daniel Farke has actually gone, actually, I think I can turn you into something a bit more than just a frail failson. We'll erase everything that Jesse taught you and we'll turn you into a footballer. Then there is some hope that he could maybe produce some more things. I think the thing I'm looking for that might be a problem is, and I think what everyone is looking for is some humility, is he's got to kind of, all the stuff last summer is like, I'll just go and play Champions League. I've got my career to think about. I wasn't that bad at Leeds. That needs to kind of go away in the knuckle down, get accepted, don't be Giuseppe Beluschi, stands from here. What worries me about that is that, if you remember when he was good at the start of last season, he distinguished himself with a no-look goal from a yard out, which was funny at the time, but then you're like, what kind of character are we talking about who's like, they've got the ball on the goal line, it's like, I'm going to no-look this in. And then when I was watching the tweet full of highlights from him playing for Union Berlin, he scores, and like he only scored twice. They're in a relegation battle, and he runs away to the crowd with his arms out as if like, see how good I am. And it won't go well for him if he tries that at Leeds. If he comes back and in his first game, he scuffs the ball in and runs away with like his hands over his ears, or he's shushing the crowd, or he's doing something like that, that's not going to work. And I hope maybe this is the start of a new Brenden. He really just needs to just do nothing apart. Don't speak. Don't talk to anyone. Don't look at anyone. Just knock the ball in the net a few times. Set up some goals for some other people. Stay out of the photos. Stay out of the way. Don't be in a video. Don't do anything. Just stay in the background and just play some football. And if you even think about running, like shushing it, like chop a finger off.
Do you think he'll get any flack from the crowd, or do you think there'll be a sort of silent sucking up of it, like when Nonto came back after his little strike? Just pre-Ipswich, post-Birmingham and all that. There was kind of all right, well, he's got the shirt on. We're not going to necessarily outwardly boo him. And I know Nonto did get a little bit of flack, didn't he, in that was it the Ipswich game, the first one back, but then he scored quite soon after, and that set him on the 27-goal redemption arc that you demanded of him.
Which he failed at.
But, but time sort of healed the situation a bit with Nonto.
I think Farke did well.
Will the same happen with Aaronson?
Farke did well with that because he basically said, I'm giving him a chance, you should too. He won't get another one. Let's see how this goes. And everyone, we didn't need Nonto at the time either, was the other thing, because we had Somerville and James who were both in the team and doing well. So people weren't maybe as angry as in the relegation season when things were going wrong, and whoever went in the team, it was still bad. So it just creates a more hostile environment for anyone to be in, doesn't it? Like, very few people came unscathed from that relegation because you wanted rid of more or less all of them.
It was just a massive shit show
by the end of it.
Yeah.
Do we entirely buy the story that he's choosing to come back? Because he doesn't quite fit in some ways. Because didn't the club say that these clauses weren't going to be a problem?
As far as I understand it, there are 2 clauses still in play, one of which is Harrison's, and all the noise around Rocker suggests he's the other one. Is this a bit of massaging it from Aaronson's point of view to try and ingratiate him a little bit? Maybe. Does it have any consequences because he's going to stay? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't entirely buy this as a tale.
No. I mean, ultimately, he's been held to his contract.
Yeah, and the other thing is he signed. I was trying to actually look back to see if there was any report of his wages. About 60 grand seems to have been a week. Seems to be the thing. If he was on the same deal as everyone else, which it seemed to be a universal thing, that will be now on about half of that. And if we accept that he was not a great buy for 25 million quid and 60 grand a week, but we've already committed to the 25 million, is he a good player for 30 grand a week? I don't know, he might be, I suppose, because he's now on. It's not a championship wage, but it's not a.
It's more manageable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly not a full Premier League wage, and maybe we think for that money, it's worth seeing if it can work.
Because he's a full international, and the standard is lower, and I don't know. I suppose I'm just approaching this from a slightly more practical, emotionally divorced point of view, which is I don't know if it's a mindset I kind of tried to carry into and out of the playoff final at Wembley. Is like, if you treat everything as slightly transactional this season, the bid to get promoted, even Farke being manager to a certain extent, there's just a thing we all need to do, and whatever it takes to get there, we accept it. Don't get too attached to the players because it's just a job to them, and just enjoy going to the football with your mates and enjoy it when we win. Then it's a lot easier to stomach stuff like this. You can, call him a little rat bastard, but also get on with just enjoying seeing Leeds win if he contributes to it.
The other way is important to remember as well, which is that as soon as the player, we demand loyalty from players, and then as soon as they stop scoring goals, like, get rid of them. The Bamford is a perfect example of that. Of like, be like, don't care what you did 2 years ago, shit now, get rid. So it cuts both ways with footballers in that sense, and you do. I think Michael's right that you just kind of gather a team together, and he should be a good player.
Do you think he'll fit from a footballing point of view, though, with regards to that? Like, in that linking up midfield and attack way? Because he can carry a ball, can't he? And I suspect he may end up leaving a few championship cloggers on their backsides, and that might be quite enjoyable to see. Don't know. What do you think?
He'll do it twice and then he'll get his legs broken. Don't try.
Preston away getting kicked to death.
Where's Ben Pearson now? Is he still at Stoke? He's just going to knock him into a few pieces, isn't he? But he's certainly quick enough to cause a lot of problems in the Championship, because that was one thing, running away from defences on counter-attacks and stuff. He was good at that. Whether or not that fits as well in a league where we're likely to have the majority of possession and stuff most of the weeks.
Well, that's the question.
But then he did come from Salzburg in a dominant team, so
yeah. But I suppose it goes back to stuff we've been talking about the Red Bull model in recent weeks, about the style of Red Bull football. Have we ever seen him? We haven't, have we? We haven't properly seen him outside that model for any given sustained period of time.
He's not really seen himself outside of it.
But
period.
That's what I was getting at when I was saying perhaps you just need to give him to a different coach who can teach him some different things. And like look at, for example, the difference it made to Dan James, to how successful a season he had last year when he was fit. He looked like a far better player following different instructions. So I suppose you just hope that if we do have to suck it up from an emotional point of view, that in terms of the football, he can do that. Farke can do that and get a bit more out of him.
He always seemed technically fairly capable, did Aaronson. Like, he can control the ball and he can dribble and he can cross it and hit through balls and stuff. I think it was one of the stats that people used to defend him. I'm sure his XGA was always decent. Like his.
Are you talking about USMNT Twitter? Those guys?
Amount. Well, possibly, yeah. But I mean, people are entitled to sort of say, well, he is giving people chances. It's not really his fault if they're not being taken. And I think there was a fair bit of that about his early Leeds career when people still liked him. That people were like, well, he's doing the right things. He's in the right areas. it's just not quite working for him. Like, he missed a few chances, people didn't put away his assists, and it could have boosted his stats quite a bit with some fairly marginal improvements, I guess, within that. So I think he is definitely good enough on a technical level for the Championship. It's just his desire to go down was so painful.
Was it the only one, though? Dan James knows how to buy a foul, doesn't he? I mean, like, Nonto was fairly...
But it felt like it was all he did.
And he didn't get the fouls. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Dan James knows how to buy a foul. William Nonto can get a foul. Brenden Aaronson falls over and the other team runs away with the ball. And that was a frustrating thing. If we were getting a free kick every time, great, Harrison can come on, he can put it over the bar. But we never actually got the free kicks for it. So it just became pointless. And so we spent the second half of the season, you almost wanted to, and I think this is why it came up in his interview where it's like, people didn't understand I was trying to win free kicks. I think it was a bit like hiding a little bit because it was an easy option. He was able to, but what we'd seen and what we'd seen before he arrived at Leeds and then in his first few months is a player if he stayed on his feet would be more useful than a player on the ground. And it just became impossible watching him every single time somebody came near him falling over, because you knew or hoped that if he stayed on his feet, he could do something much more interesting with the ball. So I think the first, and I hope people, as he does come back with Farke does say that he doesn't like to sugarcoat things with the players, that he's just like, stop diving. Like, we'll put you in jail every time you dive. There's got to be some kind of thing that it's like, you are not doing that anymore in the Championship, and you are not doing that anymore for Leeds. You are going to stay on your feet. You're going to create chances. Forget about winning free kicks. Create goals, and then just get that into his brain. Because the things, what worries me about him is like the maturity that seems to have not quite settled into him of how to deal with the adversity that he had. Because when even I can't remember if it was him telling the story or Jesse Marsh telling the story, I think they might both have done that in the second half of last season. He was because he wasn't scoring, he was staying behind for like hour after hour of shooting practice, and it became like it was the worst thing he could have been doing. He needed to stop, but he didn't know enough to work himself out of the bad form that he was into, and he was getting into self-defeating habits, trying to improve himself, which is not something to criticize someone for trying to work their way through it. But what he needed was that maturity or somebody around him.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
To say,
a coach, maybe.
Stop doing this, chill out, do something else. And
actually, maybe go away from it, perhaps, and just step away from it, distract yourself. Don't get too overly immersed in it.
But instead, he had Jesse Marsh. So I hope that those conversations are the kind of thing that Daniel Farke has had with him, to say, I am not going to, I will not sugarcoat things with you in training, and you are going to have to do this, this, and this to be the player that you should be, because he should be a lot better than he has shown in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and I think he's reached an age now as well as Aaronson where you can no longer dismiss him as just being a young player, because he's going to be 24 in October. He's the same age as Ethan Ampadu within about a month. He's 5 or 6 years older than Archie Gray. And if those two are both in the team and taking like semi-leadership roles, even in the case of Archie Gray, you can't just go, well, I'm just new here. I don't understand this. I'm new to the league. I'm still learning and stuff. Well, just don't anymore. You need to actually establish yourself as a main player and take some responsibility for things.
I think that's where the maturity thing and what I was referring to about the way he was celebrating that goal at Berlin. It's such a small thing, but it's like you're looking for those signs that maybe the switch has been flicked. And they do it with all, I suppose, I'm thinking about Vinnie Jones coming to Leeds and starting in the pre-season friendly where he broke an Anderlecht player's nose and was like, that's first one of the season. And then Gordon Strachan and Howard Wilkinson got around him and said, you're not doing that here. Because if you get booked and sent off, you're no good to us. We need you to play. So you are not doing that here anymore. And he said it was like a switch being flicked of somebody, the message finally getting through, like, that won't work. And you're looking for those signs that hopefully something like that can happen with Brenden Aaronson, where it's like things you were doing before we need to switch this up into something else that will get the best out of you. Or at least, 30 million quid. No pressure.
I mean, that's part of the issue with it. Is we basically can't sell him because of the way he'll be accounted for. We need to sell him for £15 million to not, because he
cost us basically £5 million a year plus wages.
Yeah.
If just from having him. So when I say cost, I mean that's how it's accounted for PSR.
Yeah. So we'll need to find someone to give us £15 million and take his wages. No one's going to give us £15 million for him in the form he's been in for the last 2 years. And can we, I guess, buy anyone better for free for 30 grand a week? Possibly not. I don't know. It's one of those. It's an awkward financial corner we're in because of the rules that you have to go, well, we can, as long as we keep him, we can kind of pretend he's still worth £15 million rather than admitting he's not, because we might have to sell him back to Salzburg for 6.
Maybe those guys, because they're our friends now, though.
No, that's true.
£600 million. Would you accept that?
Yes.
As for stuff away from Aaronson, then other transfer related news. The retained list came out after we recorded last time. So we spoke with Phil just ahead of it, and then it came out the same day. But not new news, but Sam Byram triggered an extension that obviously we didn't know about that, but that's been triggered and he's staying, which I think is all good news for Championship, isn't he? As long as I think we're not relying on him for 46 games, all good.
Yeah, I think he probably played more this year than anyone expected, I would say. But he was good. I don't think he ever let us down. Scored a few goals. Just was generally like a very solid and reassuring presence.
And then we have Liam Cooper still in negotiations for a new deal. That and Shackleton, I think, caught me a little bit by surprise. Yeah,
you've got to imagine they've been offered quite reduced terms because I think they were both on decent deals. They both had Premier League contracts, didn't they? So maybe we've said, look, you can stay, but it's on, a quarter of what you were on before or something. And they're both people I would think we should probably move on from just for their own good, because neither of them are clearly first choice. And I feel like they both need to go and actually play. But, equally, if either of them stayed, that's fine too.
It's maybe a bit of insurance of, like, if you don't get something better, like, you can have another year at Leeds. I think that might be in Cooper's place in particular. It's like just giving him an option. Like, you can stay here for this, so you are fixed for next year. You're not going to be, struggling to pay the mortgage. But you are also welcome to see what other deals come in. And maybe it's hard to work out how these negotiations work from a player's point of view and a club's point of view and an agent's point of view. It could maybe be just a way of helping them negotiate. If Cooper's going to being offered something by another club, this gives like a baseline of like, well, Leeds are offering me this, so you have to do better than that. And maybe the same with Shackleton. This is entire speculation on my part, by the way. I'm just inventing this and trying to work out what it would be. But it's like, it helps a player if they're not, Ken Bates used to say, well, they'll be on the dole. Nothing on benefits. When he wouldn't pay a player, when he was trying to give players pay reductions and all sorts. So you can get around that by saying, right, I've got this offer, and now other clubs, you have to match it. And there's now other stuff. I mean, what's the what came to mind was, and with I guess with Aaronson as well, was David Raya going from Brentford, signing a new contract at Brentford, going on loan to Arsenal with a clause to make it permanent, but then the option to go back, and the whole thing's just like a complete.
It was an FFP workaround, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say head fuck, but I suppose FFP workaround also works. But yeah, the chicanery that is involved now in just footballers' contracts, loan moves. I was thinking about it with Harrison as well. If he spends another season on loan in the Premier League next year, he spent 3 years on loan with us. Did he have 3 years permanent? Did he manage? Or was it 2 years permanent after we finally made it? We finally signed him.
It was just 2, wasn't it?
I think he's still on loan from Man City, and we've loaned him to Everton.
Exactly. So it all just goes, things ain't what they used to be, where it's not, you get a set of tracksuits and a bag of footballs, and you have the right to do with that player what you want. Instead you do have these sort of weird little deals. And it's the same with Cody Drama being the compensation contract where we've offered him something that presumably to fit with the rules, it has to at least match the contract he's got, so that he can go, I don't want that. I'm going to accept this from Borussia Dortmund, who've been chasing me since I was 12. And then we get compensation. So these things happen for reasons that are not as simple as like we're going to make this player the heart of the team next year.
Just speaking of Jack Harrison there, it's just made me look up his contract. So he signed a 5-year deal. So he potentially has, if we stay down, another 3-4 years on loan, which is going to be interesting for him.
It is balmy. I don't know why my mind has been shooting all over the place this morning, but Vince Hilaire came to mind because he was
another one for the kids.
He was at Leeds from 1987, I think he signed, and then Howard Wilkinson did not get on with what Vince Hilaire had to offer, to the point there's a story of him running around the pitch during training with a sign that I think said Wilkinson out and being chased by Mick Hennigan. But that was going on in like 1990, and then there are still photos of him at like Leeds photo calls in, I think, summer 1991, the title era, before he was like finally moved on. And players do have we need essentially reserve teams back, because that's where, if Rasmus Christensen is going to be a problem next season, just put him in the reserves. It's fine. You used to be able to have just like some players who were not part of the first team and not a problem to anybody, but you can't move them on. And you would forget about them unless you went to watch a reserve match in the Pontins League. And like, I didn't realise he still played for us. And so it was less of a problem. There's, oh God, these people can't believe Vince Hilaire is still hanging around the place. Why didn't you just go away? Didn't matter. Nobody knew Vince Hilaire was still here. He was just playing reserve football and going on loan sometimes and coming back again, and not being a problem to anybody apart from Howard Wilkinson. So maybe that's the future for Rasmus Christensen. Bring back a reserve league, put him in it. Rasmus
Christensen, the new Ray Wallace. That's what you're saying, basically. No bother at all.
Has he got a really talented twin that we don't know about?
Not as far as I know.
Damn.
So the fixtures are out in a couple of weeks. You looking forward to that?
Always. Then I look forward to all of them.
What are you expecting? Again. 23 at home, 23 away? Are they going to stick with a similar format?
About 2 of them at 3 o'clock on a Saturday.
Yeah, because is this where the new TV deal has kicked in and they are showing a disproportionately high number of fixtures every weekend from across the whole EFL spectrum? Because the iFollow platforms in this country anyway are getting binned off in favour of Sky Sports running the whole shebang, aren't they? So they're showing even more games, but they will all show them away from the Saturday 3 o'clock blackout window. So we could be playing at 7 a.m. on a Monday.
It won't actually affect us that much because all our games are moved anyway. So it'll probably be more noticeable if you like Coventry.
Yeah. Season kicks off the weekend of Saturday, the 10th of August. I'm almost certain we'll end up getting moved because that's the day of the Community Shield, isn't it? And they normally do that sort of, is it like a 5 o'clock-ish kickoff on the Saturday? But which means we'll probably be the Sky Sunday afternoon game, because that's what Sky do, is put us on Sky on Sunday afternoon before the Premier League kicks off the week after. So that's probably when we'll be there. That's my son's birthday as well, if it is the Sunday. So that could be an interesting conversation at home.
And some friendlies as well.
Yeah.
Announced. Harrogate Town.
Who have we got? I guess we've got Harrogate. Is that going to be the 21s?
Likely. Yeah, it's normally a bit of a... it looks like that's the first game, probably. And that's normally a bit of a patched up sort of a squad. You
see, this says Friday the 19th here on the sheet, on the notes, of July. And that's like, 4 or 5 weeks? So that feels too soon.
I know what you mean. It still
the season's only just finished.
It feels very middle of summer, doesn't it? 19th of July.
Yeah.
But then it starts not long after. And Valencia at home. That's exciting.
Yeah.
The Simon Walton derby, should we call it?
That's what we all leap to ahead of Pablo Hernandez in the Champions League semi-final. Simon Walton.
Valencia in a friendly at Ellen Road, though. It's very it's very Simon Walton-y. We should do a guide on that, maybe.
Yeah, see, the season finishes on May the 3rd, 2025 for us. Playoffs after that, obviously, but I don't think we're not dicking around with them this year, are we?
That feels far away.
We need to get Angus back in, don't we, actually?
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. What will he say?
Can ask his opinions on the general election result.
Yeah.
Maybe if we leave it till after that.
Yeah. See if his team won. Right. Anyway, yes, let's not get into that. Let's wrap it up there for this time. We'll be back later in the week and have a chat with Phil as well. So look out for that in your feed. We'll catch you in a bit.
The Square Ball Podcast.